Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Temple City Council for April 20th, 2023. Apologize for starting a little bit late. It's currently about 5:13 and please rise as Pastor Keith Pizzotto. Is that right, Keith? Close enough? Leads us in the invocation, followed by our pledge, which will be led by City Secretary Jenna Llewellyn.
Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in this city the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people in their charge. In your word, Lord, you have given us a vision of a holy city to which the nations of the world bring their glory. Behold and visit, we pray, the cities of the earth. Renew the ties of mutual regard which form our civic life. Send us honest and able leaders. Enable us to eliminate poverty, prejudice, and oppression, that peace may prevail with righteousness and justice with order, and that men and women from different cultures and with differing talents may find with one another the fulfillment of their humanity. Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. Moving on to the next item is public comments. Anyone wishing to speak, anyone wishing to address the council on any matters may do so. We ask you step to the podium and state your name for the record. No discussion or final action will be taken. We have a couple of folks that have signed up. First is Ms. Frazier.
Margie Frazier on FM 2086. It's nice to see y'all tonight. 2 Peter 2, false teachers will be destroyed, but there will also false prophets among the people. In the same way, there will be false teachers among you. In secret, they will bring in their teachings that will destroy you. They will even turn against the Lord and Master who died to pay for their sins. So they will quickly destroy themselves. Many people will follow their lead. These people will do the same evil things the false teachers do. They will cause people to think badly about the way of truth. These teachers are never satisfied. They want to get something out of you, so they make up stories to take advantage of you. They have been under a sentence of death for a long time. The God who will destroy them has not been sleeping. God did not spare angels when they sinned. Instead, he sent them to hell. He chained them up in dark prisons. He will keep them until he judges them. God did not spare the world's ungodly people long ago. He brought the flood on them. But Noah preached about the right way to live. God kept him safe. He also saved 7 others. God judged the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. He burned them to ashes. He made them an example of what is going to happen to ungodly people. God saved Lot, a man who did what was right. Lot was shocked by the evil conduct of people who didn't obey God's laws. The good man lived among them day after day. He saw and heard the evil things they were doing. They were breaking God's laws, and the godly spirit of Lot was deeply troubled. Since all this is true, then the Lord knows how to save godly people. He knows how to keep them safe in times of testing. The Lord also knows how to keep ungodly people under guard. He will do so until the day they will be judged and punished. Most of all, this is true of people who follow desires that come from sin's power. These people hate to be under authority. They are bold and proud, so they aren't even afraid to speak evil things against heavenly beings. Now, angels are stronger and more powerful than these people, but even angels don't speak evil things against heavenly beings. They don't do this when they bring judgment on them from the Lord. These people speak evil about things they don't understand. They are like wild animals who can't think. Instead, they do what comes naturally to them. They are born only to be caught and destroyed. Just like animals, these people too will die. They will be paid back with harm for the harm they have done. Their idea of pleasure is to have wild parties in the middle of the day. They are like dirty spots and stains. They enjoy their sinful pleasures while they eat with you. They stare at women who are not their wives. They want to sleep with them. They never stop sinning.
Got about 10 seconds.
They trap those who are not firm in their faith. They have mastered the art of getting what they want. God has placed them under his judgment.
Thank you, Margie. David Rowe.
Hello, all. I've just wanted to be and cover some of the things that I've covered with you before. And I hope that any of the people that are running for council seats, if they'll get a copy of this from me and maybe make a copy or so of things that I'm talking about that you might not be aware of.
Mr. Rowe, be sure and state your name for the recording, please.
Mr. Rowe,
We'll take it.
thank you. I've had difficulties trying to communicate with code and getting a straight answer for is this or this. I don't understand why that's that way. The code people will tell me they'll check on it again or they'll get back to me, and most of the time nothing happens and the stuff stays the way it was. I've been trying to get the alley situation, and my alley has been better than most. But it was partly because I flat out asked the one that's over the all the all the programs. I said, did you send people over there while I was not there to trim? Because I'd leave in the morning and go to breakfast. And when I'd come up back, there'd be stuff done that wasn't done when I left. So they sent somebody over. I said, did you do that? He said, well, sometimes when they're not busy, I'll send them over there. So my alley's different from the one beside me because somebody was kind of covering the tracks, where it couldn't see what happened. But I got the city attorney to give me an opinion of this. Did y'all see a copy of what I got? I
did.
sent you one, I
Yep,
believe.
I got it.
Did you pass it out or?
No, sir.
Well, it seemed to say to me that the city is not responsible for cleaning the alley. But in the Sunset Edition, it's made to where from the center of the alley to the curb in the front is the property owner's responsibility, and it's supposed to be maintained in accord with the city code for grass, trees, all that kind of stuff. I've made it known, and I haven't seen any indication that any interest in doing what the city attorney said is required. I've had trouble with wrecked vehicles. They put it off and put it off. There's one there now that's been there 120 days. There's supposed to be a 30-day, or they can't do nothing until 30 days, but then they can, and it's been 120 days. The last
Bro,
thing,
You're out of time. Make
I
your
get
last
15?
point. Yes, sir. Make your last point.
my last deal is about Ms. Morales running for the 5th term. And the deal from the city says she can't run but 3 times. And it was determined that she could run as long as she resigns before her term's over. She can run as many times as she wants. I don't think that's what the intent was with the 3-term limit, and I don't understand why it's this way. Thank you.
All we can say to that is everything that is being done election wise is legal. So no one's up to anything.
There's no 3-term limit.
That's not true. Okay. Next is special recognitions, which is item number 3. And we will recognize Temple's Neighborhood Coalition leaders for their leadership and commitment to the community. Ms. Glover?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm actually going to turn the mic over to Belinda Garcia. She is leading the Neighborhood Coalition Program for the Housing and Community Development Department.
Very good.
The main goal of our neighborhood coalitions is to bring people together to help us make their neighborhoods better. We currently have 7 coalitions started out of the 18 identified neighborhood districts, and we are working hard to continue to recruit more leaders. So selfish plug, if anybody here is interested in leading a coalition, you can come talk to me. With that said, we are extremely grateful for the 7 individuals who have stepped up to be leaders in their neighborhoods, and we are so honored to have the opportunity to recognize them tonight. These neighborhood leaders have been working hard the past few months, attending monthly meetings and trainings to learn more about coalitions and best practices. Hosting their own events within their neighborhoods and just being boots on the ground by communicating and networking, all while working and living their own lives. Thank you for your commitment to your city, and we couldn't do all we do without people like you. And we do have Ms. Sogrant here from the Crestview District. We'd like to present her with a thank you. And our other coalition leaders couldn't make it. The weather's kind of deterring people tonight, so.
Very good. Get one more here. Want to get it? Sure. All right. Thank you, Zoe, for your willingness to help, as always. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, which is item number 4. All items under this section are considered to be routine by the city council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the city council on any particular item, that item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of that council member and be considered separately. Council, during workshop, we discussed the consent, and it's my understanding that we're not going to pull anything tonight. Has anything changed on that? Okay. So since we're not going to be pulling anything from the consent agenda, council, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda, which is items 4A through 4P, as in Paul.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items 4A through 4P.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Down there. Here we go. Item 4, the consent agenda passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 5 is the second and final reading to consider adopting an ordinance for a rezoning request from ag to plan development with a site plan approval for single family attached 3 on 61.844 plus or minus acres located in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, known as Bell County Tax Appraisal District Property Identification Number 12859, addressed as 5020 Shallowford Road. Mr. Chandler.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Of course, this is second reading, so I have a very short update, but I can spend as long as you want up here. So obviously, the direction at the first reading was for the applicant and the developer to provide different cost estimates for public infrastructure and begin discussions for a potential developer participation agreement. And so that has been done, as Ms. Myers indicated during the workshop. And I'm happy to answer any questions or go through as many slides as you like, but the developer, Todd Scott, is here as well.
Very good. Council, any questions? Nothing? Are we going to share any numbers, or are we not ready to?
Just as a reminder for council, the total cost estimate for both Shallowford and Robin Hood Lane is around 4.5, 4.6 million. So under the proposed potential developer participation agreement, the developer would continue to be responsible for the 600 feet of improvements that are required by the plan developments that have been approved and are on the agenda tonight. And then the city through oversizing would pay for the rest, but the developer would perform the work. And of course, also perform the work and pay for all public infrastructure within the development itself. So those are the general proposed terms, very similar to what we've done with other agreements similar to this.
City doesn't, no payments made to the developer until the city is satisfied with the build out by the developer.
Typically on developer participation agreements, we do pay, allow payouts as the project progresses, especially with the large dollar amount project like this. So different than, say an economic development agreement where it's performance based. This is, essentially constructing the infrastructure as part of participation in the overall development.
But okay, there are inspections.
There are. Yes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Council, any questions?
There's also bond requirements so there's several areas of protection for the city.
Okay, then on item number 5, if there are no more questions, council will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Council Member Walker. We have a second by Council Member Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 5 passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 6 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the rezoning of 1.73 plus or minus acres from neighborhood services to planned development neighborhood services to allow convenience store, fuel sales, and alcohol sales for off-premise consumption located at 4818 South 5th Street in Temple. Mr. Chandler.
All right. As was read by the mayor in the description, this is a proposed convenience store with gas, fuel pumps, so a gas station. And so here you can see the location at the northwest corner of 5th and Waters Dairy. And so the current zoning, as was mentioned, is neighborhood service. So the purpose of the plan development was to allow for the fuel pumps, but also to evaluate the impact on the park to the west, on Friars Creek Trail, and the actual Friars Creek to the west as well. And also have a site plan review, which we have as well. And so the alcohol sales does require a conditional use permit in the standard NS zoning, and that's part of this as well. And there are no churches or schools in the immediate vicinity, 300 feet or 1,000 feet per chapter 4 of the Code of Ordinances. And as I mentioned, the purpose of the plan development. Also the current zoning, you can see the neighborhood service. And then looking at the comprehensive plan on the right, corridor mixed use, which the gas station is compliant with that. And so here's the subject property. And you can see bottom right-hand corner, this is from Waters Dairy looking to the north of the property. And to the west, of course, looks like a creek because that is Friars Creek. And then immediately to the west of that is Silverstone Park. And to the south is actually a city-owned tract. And then to the east, undeveloped land, but is actually land where a zoning case came to P&Z on Monday to develop this as a mix of uses, residential and commercial, as part of TMed South. And so you all will see that next month. And so here's the site plan. So draw your attention to the right. This is a proposed 7,750 square foot building. That's what you see on the left. The gray area to the right, those are the the fuel canopy. On the left is crosshatched area, the blue, that is floodplain. And it's proposed to protect that, keeping in mind that it's not floodway. So there would be an opportunity with a floodplain development permit to be able to develop in that area, unlike the floodway, but the planned development would protect the trees in that area from being developed. And also draw your attention to driveways, starting in the north, 5th Street, call it driveway number 3. So there would be access and also a median cut. So that's full access along 5th Street, a right in, right out driveway number 2, closer to the intersection with Waters Dairy on 5th, and then a full access driveway on Waters Dairy as well. The applicant has also agreed to install the signage according to TMED standards. So that's smaller with a masonry base, monument signage. Looking at the mobility master plan, just draw your attention to gas stations are high trip generators. And so it could generate as much as 7,500 cars a day. However, 5th Street is a major arterial. And then when we show you the thoroughfare plan, you'll see kind of the general alignment of Waters Dairy, which would be extended to the east and connect to the development that I mentioned that you will see next month. And looking at the utilities, so you've got a 3-inch water line along 5th Street and a 12-inch along Waters Dairy, wastewater 24-inch line, just a little bit to the west. As I mentioned, 5th is a major arterial, so a 6-foot sidewalk will be required, and the applicant agrees with that. It is a requirement, and we'll ensure that at permit. And then Waters Dairy is a community collector. And actually, so if you look at the orange, Waters Dairy at the bottom, wish I had a more zoomed out image, but you can see that Waters Dairy is projected to extend into the property that is also to be developed on the other side, and then ultimately would connect to the north, Blackland Road, with a kind of a gentle curve. So 3 notices were sent out to property owners within 200 feet. 2 were sent in agreement, 0 in disagreement. And so staff recommends approval with the following conditions: maintaining the tree line in the western portion, which is primarily in the floodplain. Also, development would adhere to 5% landscaping requirement per the UDC. Because it's a tight site, especially because of the floodway or in the floodplain, we're working with the applicant to be able to get some credit for landscaping the right of way on 5th and Waters Dairy, but also for the preservation of the tree line to the west along Friars Creek. And so the site plan shows still the areas that can be landscaped beyond that. TMED signage standards would apply. A 6-foot sidewalk, as mentioned before, would be constructed along 5th Street, connecting to the existing 4-foot sidewalk already on Waters Dairy that connects also to the south and to South Temple Park and Lions Junction. So the proposed median cut would be subject to review based on current AASHTO criteria. So Planning and Zoning Commission at their March 20th meeting voted 8-0 to recommend approval per staff recommendation and those conditions. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler?
Location for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Surprise.
The lighting standards.
So the lighting standards, it's a good question. That is not part of the proposal for the specific TMED lighting standards, which when you're talking about light trespass, really our general standards would prevent the light trespass, at the permit stage to ensure that they have shielded lighting.
Okay,
But that's something that if you felt strongly about, you could certainly add that to the recommendation, in terms of lighting, just to ensure we've got kind of the belt and suspenders approach here, and to ensure that the lighting doesn't create.
I don't want to be
issues with
onerous
neighbors.
about it, but maybe if we could just recommend conversation about it
Sure.
rather
and-
than demands.
Well, and so it's a simple fix in our code, but as you know, especially with multifamily, we often recommend that just to ensure that it gets caught, draw attention to it because it's important. So it really, all it is a shield on the light to
Okay.
ensure that it prevent light trespass.
Because this is going to back up to housing ultimately
No,
behind it. No?
no,
Across
and
the creek.
this is to the north is already.
Across the creek.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well,
All
now,
right.
we don't know we don't know exactly what is proposed by the developer for the rest of the property to the north, which is also zone neighborhood service. But I mean, in terms of whether
We just
there's
don't wanna be-
residential that they provide, it wouldn't be single family.
Right.
be a
We just don't want to be
multifamily.
backed into a situation where ultimately residents are complaining about lighting coming from a
Right. No,
convenience store.
Yes.
We've,
no,
we've been through that. We know that picture.
Right. So no residents are nearby, but the future development across Waters Dairy would
Right.
include retail along Fifth, which can provide some buffering
Yeah.
for the residential that is proposed just a little further
Okay.
east.
I
But,
think you've answered my question. I just wasn't visualizing it.
but we will work with the developer just to ensure that, that it meets chapter 7 of our performance standards and no light trespass. You bet.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Council, anything else? Okay, this item number 6 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Come on. Next time you sit closer to the podium.
Alan Lytle, 504 Paseo del Plata. I am a little confused of what we're trying to do here. We just finished building a nice service station on the corner of Fifth and 93. In the vacant lot at Canyon Creek in Fifth Street, Canyon Creek and Fifth Street, is a sign that says they're going to build one there as well. Now, unless that's this particular one. So we would have 3 of them right in a row on Fifth Street. I think it's a little too many service stations selling alcohol.
Okay,
Did I make a mistake?
Don't know about the Canyon Creek location. I'm honestly, that sign's been up a long time. I don't believe they permitted it. It's zoned appropriately and being marketed at least for that, but I haven't seen a permit for that.
thank you, Mr. Lytle.
Copy of this and get it to the people.
Sure, just give me all of them and we'll be sure that they get distributed.
Okay. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer those.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak during the public hearing? Nobody? Anybody on the virtual platform? Okay, then with that, I will close the public hearing. In council, I'll entertain a motion on item number 6. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 6 passes 4 votes to 0. Moving on to item 7 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from light industrial to planned development for commercial, 2-family residential, and single-family, 3 residential on 92.618 plus or minus acres addressed as 19802 Southeast HK Dodge and Loop in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, appraisal district parcel ID number 30028. Mr. Chandler.
All right. This is a proposed mixed-use project in East Temple, just along the loop, and you can see where exactly that is located. And so this property is actually zoned light industrial, primarily because of its proximity to Dozier wastewater plant, city's wastewater plant, which is on the northern portion of the screen here. So this is total of 92.6 acres proposed for a mix of duplexes, single family, and commercial. And so the general acreage shown on the site plan, which I'll show you in just a second, 12.6 acres of commercial, 31.36 for duplexes, and 44.5 for single family 3. And so here you can see the site plan on the right, and you can see that the red is proposed commercial, and 2F shown in green. There's actually a parkland area that is within the blue area as opposed to green, but the blue shows future single family 3, and it also shows an extension of Avenue N. And so we've been working with other developers. This is actually in the Crestview area, to work on extending Avenue N per the thoroughfare plan and per the Crestview neighborhood plan. And so this developer is happy to work with us. I shouldn't put words in your mouth, Josh. Has been working with us on that, and then also upsizing the right of way to 65 feet, per the neighborhood plan, which include 36 feet of pavement, a 10-foot shared use path on the south side, street trees on both sides, and then the city may participate to upsize. And so that is consistent with the other developments that have been approved to the west. And so in terms of the comprehensive plan, as I mentioned, because of its proximity to the Dozier wastewater plant, this part of the corridor just proposed as light industrial, but we have no plan to extend the Synergy Park industrial park on the other side of the loop to this area. So just FYI, I'm sure you all knew that, and no public may not. Avenue N, future neighborhood collector, and then the upsizing per the neighborhood plan, as we mentioned. In terms of trails and sidewalk compliance, was been agreed to and consistent with the other developments to the west, is 4 to 5 foot sidewalk on each side of the collector, or a shared use path, and then on Avenue N, a 10-foot shared use path on one side. I believe it's actually on the south side, consistent with the other developments. An easement would be provided along Loop 363 for an opportunity for a trail to comply with our trails master plan. And in terms of the mobility master plan, it recommends improvements along Avenue N, including sidewalks and bike facilities. And so that is what is proposed to be able to comply with that. Utilities, you can see in green, the sewer lines, the water lines in blue. This is within the Temple Independent School District. And here are photos of the site. And the adjacent property to the west and to the south look very similar. And then the adjacent property to the north, which the Dozier wastewater treatment plant is kind of in the background there. So property owners were notified within 200 feet, and that was for 5 properties, received 1 response in favor from the applicant, mind you. Development Review Committee reviewed this on February 21st. Staff and Planning and Zoning Commission at their March 20th meeting voted in favor of staff's recommendation by a vote of 8-0 of the rezoning, subject to the following conditions, and I'm not gonna read all this, but of course, compliance with the site development plan that you just saw, the breakdown of the 3 districts, as was mentioned, with a 10% plus or minus reduction or increase of those as the plans get finalized. Also, no residential driveways along the collector streets. The sidewalks, as we had mentioned, the 15-foot easement for future trail compliance with the Trails Master Plan, implementing elements of the Crestview District Neighborhood Plan, specifically for Avenue N, and then also landscaping per UDC Section 7.4, but clarifying that at least 1 tree would be required in each front yard, and then screening and buffering between the commercial zone property and any residential. And then lastly, that subdivision plat would be required. And that's all I have, and glad to answer any questions. And of course, Mr. Welch, the developer, is here as well.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chandler. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler?
Yeah, just like the, yeah, it looks like it's a big plan, excited about more development in this temple.
That area is really picking up for sure. All right, item 7 is subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. Step to the podium, state your name and address, or raise your hand on the platform.
My turn. Dr. Sandra Creech, 504 Paseo de Plata, here in Temple, Texas. I will reiterate my concern about the East Loop. We are building all these wonderful subdivisions and we desperately need that development on the east side. But we have done absolutely nothing about the 2 lanes, 60 mile an hour, 363 from 36 to I-35. There is 1 subdivision that's being developed that has a right turn lane. Thank you to the developer for that. But I am concerned about the amount of traffic that we are dumping out onto that loop without any plans that I have seen about expanding that and widening those roads and make it handle the amount of traffic we are about to jump into it. Thank you.
Dr. Creech, I was actually in a meeting yesterday where that's beginning to be talked about. Now, when you talk about, well, you know what, to do it quickly would still be 10 years. So I'm just telling you. Hope you're not in an accident on that road.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Margie Frazier. I live off of 363 on the side, closer to where Bucky's is and all, and I know what it's like. I live about 3 miles from that flashing light on 363, and I have to come across there. Coming here, I come across, and there's a lot of traffic coming over here at 4:30. It doesn't take 20 minutes to get here, but it probably took 5 minutes to sit there and wait on the traffic because there's so much traffic at certain hours. There might be a possibility of maybe having lights that are at certain times going red and green or something. But I don't want to wait 10 years. I'm already 70.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
If I may, Josh Welch, 2002 Rustic Manor here in Temple. First off, I'd just like to brag on the staff and working through this with staff. As you can see from the PD requirements, they're pretty lengthy. There was a lot of discussions and working through, kind of what my vision was for the project, and then working through some of the Crestview plans and some of the neighborhood plans that the city had put together. And I think we've come up with what's going to be a really good project here for the city. And I think sometimes, even though it's going through the PD process, sometimes takes a little longer. But I think y'all will be happy with, once we get through that with staff and we get to where we're here with council to y'all can see the whole picture, and not just this is sometimes a simple zoning case, but you can see a whole picture for a plan for a whole plan development like this. So I think in a lot of these instances, having to do PDs and putting some of this together up front is a positive thing, both from developer standpoint and from the city standpoint. And just so some of the neighbors, just so y'all know, and some of the citizens' concerns and TxDOT, I've already had a preliminary meeting with TxDOT and discussing this project, which is proposed along that loop, because that's all TxDOT roadway, and so TxDOT controls it. So even if, as much as me or city may ask or beg or plead, whatever, ultimately it's TxDOT's decisions on what's going to go on with it. But as far as us developing this property and tying into those TxDOT roads, we are going to be doing some TIA with TxDOT, and looking at the traffic both that's on 363 and the traffic that'll be coming from Avenue N and from this development. And so we'll do a full analysis and looking at what needs to be done with this project as far as turn lanes or traffic lights and all that. So we'll be doing all that analysis with TxDOT along with this project with the first phase of it, because we'll be tying Avenue N into Loop 363 with the first phase of the project. So just want y'all to know that, and be happy to, if y'all have any questions, be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. Appreciate it. Is there anyone on the virtual platform? Anyone else from the audience? All right, there being none, I will close the public hearing on item number 7. In council, I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. We have a second by Councilmember Walker. Council, please cast your vote. Item 7 passes 4 votes to 0. Item 8 reads, it's the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from general retail to commercial on 1.072 plus or minus acres addressed as 2845 North 15th Street in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas. Appraisal district parcel ID number 29098. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And so this property is located on Industrial Boulevard at 15th and very close to I-35. So it is located within the industrial subdistrict of the I-35 corridor overlay. So just over an acre, and it's a proposed warehouse office facility, which that use is allowed in general retail with a conditional use permit or allowed by right in C, which is why the applicant requested that. It is allowed in the overlay, and the overlay standards would apply for development here related to architectural, retail, signage, et cetera. And so some of the uses are additionally restricted within the overlay in C, and I'll show you a table in a second. But office warehouse, once again, is allowed in C within the overlay. Therefore, this is not a planned development, it's just a base rezoning. Okay, I could spend a lot of time on this, but I think I'll just point out that the red indicates that there are uses, of course, as I alluded to before, in commercial that are also either prohibited in the overlay or require a conditional use permit. For example, minor and major vehicle repair in C would require a conditional use permit, whereas elsewhere in the city, it would be allowed by right in C. And then prohibited would be an example is auto storage or an auto auction that otherwise is allowed in C. And so in terms of the comprehensive plan, regional commercial, regional serving businesses relying on high traffic and visibility. And so office warehouse or warehouse office certainly meets that. Thoroughfare plan, industrial, and the northern section of 15th Street are just local streets actually, but of course, I-35 is an expressway. No conflict identified during the mobility master plan at this location, this site, and no trails or sidewalks would be required here. City water and sewer are available. The property is in TISD. And here you can see the site. And Cefco to the south, apartments to the east. And so notices were mailed out to 5 property owners within 200 feet. And the only response we received was from the applicant. And so staff recommends approval, and so did Planning and Zoning Commission by a vote of 8-0 at their March 20th meeting. And that's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, sir. Council, any questions?
I'm glad to see that we're gonna make sure that overlay standards are in effect. The warehouse can be a bit unsightly. And I know we had big plans for that area, the Grove. We kind of envisioned some really fantastic things, but as long as we stay on top of it, and I'm sure you will.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this item is also subject to a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this item may do so. We ask you step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the virtual platform. Nothing on the virtual platform? Nothing? All right, I will close the public hearing. And council, if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion on item number 8. We have a motion by Councilmember Long, a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Item 8 passes 4 votes to 0. Item 9 is the first reading in a public hearing to consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning request from agriculture to planned development with neighborhood services along Old Waco Road and a single-family dwelling SF1 on the remainder of the property on a total of 20.04 plus or minus acres, addressed as 1867 Old Waco Road in the city of Temple, Bell County, Texas, appraisal district parcel ID number 49961. Mr. Chandler.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And so the roughly 20 acres you can see here, that's Old Waco Road on the left, future outer loop, designed and funded section of the outer loop. And this is a proposal for 28 half-acre single-family homes with a bit of neighborhood service at the corner. And the applicant has been great to work with to help us comply with the future development plan, which identifies commercial mixed use in that area, and thus the neighborhood service. The subdivision plat is currently under review, and this is within the Belton Independent School District. They've been certainly notified, no response has been received. And so this item was actually tabled at the March 20th meeting to work closely with the developer, with the property owner, to provide 2 lots, which you can see there that were on the original plat, to have those as future neighborhood service.
Mr. Chairman, am I reading Mama Lane?
Yes, Mama
Papaw
and
Parkway?
Mama and Papaw. So
Okay.
Papaw did not get left out.
All right. Just
So
checking.
he gets a street too.
A small one.
Yeah, it's a small one. We know who ran that family. All right, so here you can see the future development plan and the corridor mixed use that I had indicated in pink, and residential and neighborhood service on the east side. And so property is currently zoned ag. But it's surrounded by not just ag, but single family attached 3 and some office 2. And so existing in water and sewer, 8-inch sewer line and a 12-inch water line. And so as mentioned, Old Waco Road proposed outer loop. Built in, that section is still rural, but expansion anticipated in the next year or so. Trails master plan would include extension of the wide sidewalks or shared use paths that you see further north. And so here is site photos. And so the bottom left-hand corner is the portion of the Old Waco Road frontage that would remain or be part of just the single family one. And that's to preserve a relatively new house that the owner and developer, he has family that lives there, and there is no intention to turn that to retail anytime soon. So, but on the other side of Maumaw Lane would include the neighborhood service. So view to the south, you can see Old Waco Road in its current condition. And to the west, beyond the trees, that's the property. And so neighborhood service, it can include neighborhood scale, retail, salon, convenience store without fuel pumps. Looking at traffic generation. So, roughly 10 trips be generated by each single family residential. So you're looking at potential of 286 trips generated on Old Waco Road by the residential portion. Six notices were sent out within 200 feet. One returned an agreement, and that was by the applicant, but no notices in disagreement. So staff recommends approval of the request, and Planning and Zoning Commission also recommend approval by a vote of 6-0 at their April 3rd meeting.
Including the names,
I'm sorry.
including the street names.
Yes. And so fairly straightforward plan development.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, sir.
Did Mama live in that pretty house that was there?
No, I believe it's an offspring. So I think it's a granddaughter.
Okay. Council, any questions for Mr. Chandler before I open the public hearing? All right, then at this time, I'll open that public hearing. Step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, or raise your hand on the podium. On the platform. Sorry. Anybody? All right. I'll close the public hearing on item number 9 and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Mama.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Mama Walker, seconded by Councilmember Long. I wasn't touching that one. So council, please cast your vote. Item number 9 passes 4 votes to 0. Item 10 is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a master services agreement and a 10-year purchasing agreement for an integrated digital evidence management solution from Axon Enterprises Incorporated of Scottsdale, Arizona, for the Temple Fire Marshal's Office in an estimated amount of $147,791.86. The companion resolution, item number 11, is to consider adopting a resolution authorizing a master services agreement and a 10-year purchasing agreement for an integrated digital police evidence management solution from Axon Services of Scottsdale, Arizona, in the estimated amount of $9,477,553.69. I have Mitch and Sean up on this one. You guys gonna do some talking, or?
I think
Are we
I can
good?
probably just give a few quick highlights, Mayor. This is for our agreement with Axon, which, as council recalls, provides our body worn cameras, our in-car video systems, our tasers, and several other items in service to our police department. So that's item number 11. And then for fire marshal's office, who also has sworn officers as part of the fire marshal's office, we would also recommend having the same equipment and capabilities provided to them as well. So this would allow us to enter into a 10-year agreement for these services.
And fire marshal would receive the same equipment because they are doing investigations.
They are sworn police officers. And it's our recommendation that anyone who is functioning as a police officer would have the body camera and equipment. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, council, we'll vote on these items one at a time. So does anyone have any questions for either of the chiefs or for the city manager before we proceed with the vote? Nope.
I think it's important that we provide the equipment necessary for safety.
Yep, agreed. All right, then on item number 10, council, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve item 10.
Second that motion.
We have a motion by Councilmember Walker, a second by Councilmember Long. Council, please cast your vote. Item 10 passes 4 votes to 0. And council, if there are any questions on item 11, I'll entertain a motion.
Now I'll make a motion to approve. Item 11 is presented by city manager.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Long. We have a second by Mayor Pro Tem Morales. Council, please cast your vote. Item 11 passes 4 votes to 0. It is currently 6:11 PM. Want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Safe travels home.